Do you know how a romantic train trip with your loving wife can end? I do. And I'm still trying to figure out what exactly broke first, her loyalty or my blind faith in it. Hey, my name's Mark. I'm 38, married for 11 years. No kids. Not by choice, just how things played out. I work in residential construction. She works in PR. We live just outside Milwaukee in a quiet neighborhood where everybody waves but no one really talks. Her name's Rachel. Or Ratch, if she lets you get that close. I used to be close. She planned the trip. Said we needed time together, without screens or stress or routines. Something different. So she booked us 2 tickets on the California Zephyr, one of those cross-country Amtrak routes that runs from Chicago all the way to the San Francisco Bay Area. Just us, a private sleeper, and 2.5 days of scenery, silence, and supposedly reconnection. She picked the window seat. Said she wanted to watch the landscape change. I took the aisle, like I always do. That's how it started. I didn't think much of it at first. She handled the reservations, chose the roomette. I appreciated the initiative. But something about the way she insisted on that window seat stuck with me. She wasn't just after the view. She needed it. The first leg out of Chicago was fine. Quiet. Polite. We shared a bottle of wine that she brought, a Pinot Noir I'd never heard of but she claimed was perfect for train travel. Her words, not mine. I remember she looked beautiful that night. Not dressed up, just right. The kind of effortless pretty that always made me feel lucky. But she wasn't looking at me the same. Her eyes were elsewhere. Maybe already gone. She spent most of the next day by the window, headphones in, typing on her laptop. Said it was work, PR clients who couldn't wait 48 hours for a reply. I know how that business goes. But I also know how her eyes lit up when a notification popped up on her screen. And how quickly she closed her laptop when I came over to sit beside her. We passed through Iowa, and I tried to keep it light. Made dumb jokes about the cornfields, pointed out river names, tried to get her to laugh. She did, but it felt rehearsed. Her real smiles weren't for me. That afternoon we went to the observation car. That's where I saw him. She spotted an empty pair of seats and told me to grab drinks. When I came back, she was mid-conversation with a guy in a Patagonia fleece and white sneakers. He had that star-up energy, cocky, casual, smooth. The kind of guy who drinks pour-over coffee and thinks every conversation is a TED Talk. She was laughing. He was leaning in like he'd known her for years. I stood there for maybe 5 seconds longer than I should have. Then I sat down and handed her drink. She didn't introduce me. He glanced at me and said, "Ethan." I said, "Mark." That was the extent of it. They went back to their conversation, shared interests, podcasts, some indie musician I'd never heard of. I sat there quietly, looking out the window at the Nebraska flatlands. We eventually left. As we got up, he told her, "Maybe I'll see you later." She smiled. "Yeah, maybe." "Back in the cabin?" I asked. "You know that guy?" "No," she said. "Just met him." "You hit it off." She shrugged. "He's easy to talk to." That night she said she couldn't sleep and went to the lounge car to read. It was almost midnight. I waited 10 minutes, then followed. The train rocked gently as I moved through the narrow hallway. We were somewhere in Colorado by then, middle of nowhere. I found her in the observation car. She was sitting next to Ethan, laughing. Too close. His hand touched hers for just a second too long. I didn't walk in. I stood there, watched for maybe a full minute. Then I turned around and walked back to the room. Sat down. Didn't turn on the light. She came back 20 minutes later. Smelled like red wine and cold air. She didn't say a word. Neither did I. She came back to the cabin around 12:40 a.m. Didn't say where she'd been. Just slid the door shut behind her, pulled off her jacket, and climbed into the lower bunk. I was already under the blanket, facing the wall, pretending to be asleep. I felt her hesitate, like she was debating whether to touch my shoulder, say something, offer an explanation. But then she laid down, turned her back to me, and that was it. No apology. No lie. Just that kind of silence people use when they think they've earned the right not to explain. I stayed still, my eyes wide open in the dark. Morning came with the same awkward choreography. She got up first, went to the bathroom down the corridor, came back and started brushing her hair at the tiny mirror by the window. Her reflection didn't look at me once. Not even a glance. I sat up, pulled on a hoodie, and just watched. "Coffee?" she asked without turning. "Sure," I said. She left. When the door clicked shut behind her, I stood up and checked her side of the cabin. I didn't know what I was looking for. Maybe I wasn't even looking. Maybe I just wanted to know what it felt like to search. There was nothing obvious. No secret phone. No scribbled hotel address. Just her laptop, still warm, and her phone, face down on the fold-out table. I stared at that phone for a long time. Then I stepped back. Let it be, I told myself. Let it come to you. She returned 5 minutes later with 2 paper cups. Handed me one without meeting my eyes. Hers were puffy, maybe from the altitude, maybe from not sleeping, or maybe something else. We drank in silence as the train curved along the edge of the Rockies. It should have been beautiful. I should have cared. Instead, I was watching how she held the cup, how her thumb tapped the lid rhythmically. That was new. Nervous tick, maybe. Or a tell. She finally spoke. You didn't sleep much last night. I nodded. Neither did you. She hesitated. Just couldn't unwind. I looked out the window. Yeah, I noticed. She didn't answer. Later, during lunch, we sat across from an older couple from Reno. They asked if we were celebrating anything, anniversary, birthday, bucket list trip. Rachel smiled politely and said, just escaping the noise for a while. I stared at my sandwich, chewing slowly, thinking how fitting that was. Escape the noise. We spent the next few hours pretending to read. I watched the way she tilted her body away from me in the seat, how she smiled at her screen when she thought I wasn't looking. And then, sometime around Grand Junction, she excused herself to go stretch her legs. Took her phone with her. I waited 2 minutes, then quietly followed. Didn't see her in the lounge car. Didn't see her in the cafe car either. She wasn't stretching. She was hiding. I walked back to the sleeper car and waited just down the hall from our roomette, pretending to look at the map near the attendant station. 7 minutes later, I saw her emerge from the last cabin, the one 3 doors down from ours. His cabin. She smoothed her shirt, checked her reflection in the metal paneling, then walked back toward me, surprised to see me standing there. Oh, she said. I was looking for you. Yeah, I replied, keeping my voice flat. Just walked through the cars. Thought maybe you were in the lounge. I nodded once. Nope. We stood there for a second too long. Then I stepped aside to let her pass, and we both walked back to our room in silence. I didn't ask. I didn't raise my voice. Because here's the thing. When something shatters, the instinct is to pick it up, to fix it, glue it, save what you can. But sometimes you just stare at the shards. You take inventory. You see what shape the damage took. And then you decide what to do with your hands. That night, I waited for her to fall asleep. Then I took her phone off the table. I knew the passcode. I'd always known it. She never changed it. That was her real mistake. I didn't open the messages. I didn't go digging. I just opened the photo gallery. Scrolled to recents. There they were. 3 photos from the lounge car. Timestamped. Geotagged. One was of Ethan, smiling with that insufferable confidence, leaning on the windowsill with a glass of wine. Another was of their legs, side by side, feet barely touching. And one was a selfie. Rachel's head tilted against his shoulder. I stared at it for a long time. Then I placed the phone exactly where it had been, laid down, and finally slept. The next morning, I didn't ask her anything. She made small talk. I played along. She mentioned how beautiful the mountains were. I agreed. She said something about getting breakfast in the dining car. I said sure, but I was done asking questions. The less I said, the more she tried to fill the space. People get loud when they're lying, not with volume, but with noise. She talked about her client in Portland, the Zoom call she had scheduled next week, a new skincare routine she wanted to try. All fluff. All static. I nodded when I had to. Mostly I just watched. I was watching when she kept checking her reflection in the window. I was watching when she reapplied her lipstick before stepping out to get some air. And I was watching when she walked back into the cabin 20 minutes later, cheeks flushed, trying too hard to act casual. She offered me a muffin from the cafe car. I took it, ate it in silence. It was around 11 a.m. when I saw him again. Ethan. He was 2 cars ahead, sitting in the observation car, legs stretched out, coffee in hand, laptop open like he was running some important empire from a train seat. He was alone this time. I stood there for a moment, just outside the entrance, watching. Then I walked in. He didn't notice me until I sat down across from him. He looked up, mildly startled. Hey, he said. I didn't smile. Morning. He glanced around, as if checking whether Rachel was with me. She wasn't. Nice day, he said. I nodded. You enjoying the ride? Yeah, man. It's my first time on Zephyr. Kinda wild how pretty everything is. He sipped his coffee, leaned back. I leaned in. She likes the view. I said. He blinked. Sorry, Rachel, I clarified. She likes the view. That's why she booked the window. He looked at me differently now, still trying to read if this was friendly or not. I guess she does, he said. I let that sit for a second. Then I stood up, adjusted my jacket. Before leaving, I looked him dead in the eye. Enjoy the ride, Ethan. Views change fast around here. And I walked away. Didn't look back. Back in the room, Rachel was scrolling her phone. She looked up quickly, like she wasn't expecting me so soon. Where were you? She asked. Observation car, I said. She hesitated. Alone. I looked at her for a long beat. Yeah. Her eyes searched mine. I let them. She didn't say anything else. That afternoon, I started writing things down. A list. Dates, times, behavior. Nothing obsessive. Just facts. Tuesday, 10:48 p.m. Left Remet. Returned 12:40 a.m. Wednesday, 11:14 a.m. Out for air. Seen returning from Ethan's car. No direct mention of Ethan since lunch on day 2. Phone behavior. Constant checking, smiles, screen turned away. I wasn't going to confront her. I wasn't going to yell. I was going to know. All the way. Down to the bone. Because there's a kind of closure that only comes from clarity. And I wasn't going to leave this train without it. That night, we watched the sun set somewhere past Salt Lake City. The light hit her face in a way that used to mean something to me. She looked over and smiled like nothing was wrong. I smiled back. That's when I knew she was already losing. We hit Nevada sometime after 9 a.m. The sun just high enough to burn the desert clean. Rachel was asleep in the lower bunk, curled toward the wall. I watched her for a while from the upper bed. Her breathing was even, peaceful. I remember thinking how strange it was, how betrayal can rest so easily. Like guilt needs rest more than the innocent do. I climbed down quietly, careful not to wake her, and stepped into the hallway with my phone. It buzzed the moment I got signal again. A message. Unknown number. You don't know me, but you should know what's happening. Check room 6. That was it. No name. No punctuation. Just that. Room 6. I stood still, phone in hand, the motion of the train rocking slightly beneath my feet. Our room was room 9. Ethan's was room 6. I didn't rush. I didn't panic. I just walked the narrow corridor calmly, like I had every right to be there. When I passed room 6, the door was cracked an inch open. I didn't stop. Not right away. I went 2 rooms farther, then slowly backed up, pretending to check my watch, and let myself glance through the narrow gap. It was empty. No voices. No people. But I saw her scarf. The burgundy one I bought her in Denver 2 years ago. It was hanging from the hook inside Ethan's room. I stepped away. My fingers tightened around my phone. Not in rage, but focus. My heart wasn't even racing. That surprised me. Back in our room, Rachel was awake, stretching. Hey, she said with a sleepy voice. Where'd you go? Walk, I replied. Signals back. Got a few messages. She nodded slowly. Anything important? Yeah, I said. A few things. I didn't elaborate. Neither did she. The day crawled. We spent hours pretending to read. She offered to play cards. I declined. Said I wasn't in the mood. At one point, she asked, You okay? Yeah, I said. Just thinking. What about? I looked at her, right in the eyes. How people slip, I said. And how it usually isn't by accident. Her face twitched, just slightly. But she caught herself fast. Too fast. That afternoon, I stepped out again. Waited near the attendance station until she left our room, alone. She headed straight toward Ethan's door, looked around once, then slipped inside. I didn't follow. Not yet. Instead, I pulled out my phone and texted that same number. Who are you? No response. 10 minutes passed. 15. Then another message arrived. Doesn't matter. What matters is you get ready. It's bigger than you think. I stared at the words. What did that mean? This wasn't just an affair. Someone knew. Someone was watching. And whoever it was, they weren't on Ethan's side. The pieces weren't fitting yet, but something was shifting. I wasn't just a husband being lied to. I was part of something layered. That night, Rachel was too cheerful. She talked more than usual. Asked if I wanted to get off at Emeryville and rent a car, maybe go north instead of staying in the Bay. We don't have to follow the plan, she said. Let's be spontaneous. She was trying to buy normal, trying to cover the tracks. But her timing was bad. Because now, I wasn't just angry, I was curious. Let's wait and see, I told her. She smiled. Okay. We were maybe 2 hours out of Reno when she said she was going to take a nap. As soon as she laid down, I opened my notes app and began building a timeline. Room 6. Anonymous text. The scarf. The sudden suggestion to change destinations. This wasn't spontaneous. This was structured. I laid down beside her, eyes wide open in the dark. She shifted in her sleep, murmured something I couldn't make out. And that's when I knew she wasn't afraid of me finding out. She was afraid of someone else finding her out. This wasn't just cheating. This was planning. And I had just stepped into someone else's game. The message came just after we crossed into California. Midday sun cutting through the trees, casting long lines across the train car. Rachel was asleep again, or pretending to be, curled in the corner seat, legs tucked, phone resting face down on the table. My own phone buzzed in my lap. Check your email. Subject line, Zephyr. Same number. No name. I opened it. The sender was just a string of letters and numbers, a burner, clearly. Subject line, Zephyr. Attachment, PDF. 14.3 megabytes. I hesitated for maybe half a second before opening it. Inside, screenshots. Dozens of them. Text between Rachel and Ethan. Photos. Some from the train. Some clearly taken earlier, weeks earlier. A hotel lobby. A bar in Seattle. An Airbnb kitchen with her red sweater folded on the back of a chair. And then the final image, a scanned document. A lease. Signed by Rachel A. Donnelly and Ethan M. Connor. Start date, next month. Location, Fremont, California. I stared at the screen for a long time, the way you might look at the aftermath of a car crash. Detached. Studying debris. Not because I was surprised, but because it confirmed what I'd started to feel back in Colorado, that this wasn't just a fling. It was a move. A new life. Already in motion. With my wife as one of the architects. I saved the file. Backed it up twice, Google Drive, Dropbox. Then I looked over at her. She was still in that fake sleep posture, one leg slightly twitching, like she could feel the shift in air. I stood up and stepped out into the hallway. That's where I saw her. A woman, mid-30s, brown leather jacket, hair tied back tight. She'd been in the dining car the night before, sitting alone, reading some paperback with a torn cover. At the time, I thought nothing of it. Now I realized she had watched me. And Rachel. She was the one who'd sent the folder. I could feel it. She looked up at me as I passed. Just once. No smile. No nod. Just a look. Direct. Controlled. We didn't speak. I walked past, out to the lounge car. Found a quiet corner, and sat. For 10 minutes, I said nothing. Did nothing. Just listened to the train hum beneath me. Then I texted back. Why send this? The reply came instantly. Because she did the same to me. That was it. And just like that, everything shifted. Rachel hadn't just betrayed me. She'd done this before. To someone else. And now the past had circled back, not for revenge, but for balance. I closed my eyes. Started breathing slower. More deliberately. This wasn't just my story anymore. This was a pattern. And patterns leave evidence. They repeat. I stood up and walked back to our roomette. Rachel was awake now. Sitting upright, scrolling her phone. She looked up as I stepped in. Smiled soft, rehearsed. Hey, where'd you go? Observation car. Good view. I sat down across from her. Calm. Focused. Incredible, I said. Hard to look away. She tilted her head. Studying me. She could feel it. Something was off. But she didn't know what. And I wasn't about to tell her. Let her wonder. Let her feel it creeping in, slow and quiet, the way guilt does when it knows it's about to be seen. That night, I didn't sleep. And neither did she. By the time the Zephyr curved out of the Sierra Nevada and started its descent toward Emeryville, I had already been awake for hours. I wasn't tired. I wasn't anything, really. Just aware. Focused in a way I hadn't felt in years. Rachel was still wrapped in the blanket, asleep in that weightless way liars sleep when they think the room is still dark enough to hide them. Her phone rested in her palm like a lit fuse. I left quietly and made my way to the lounge car. She was there. The same woman from the earlier encounter, the one with the unreadable face and leather jacket that looked like it had been places. We didn't exchange names. She simply nodded and slid the flash drive across the table. No drama. No explanation. Just a handoff. She didn't need to say, she did the same thing to my brother. Her eyes already had. Cold, clear, experienced. This wasn't her first betrayal. And she wasn't interested in watching the repeat. I took the drive, returned to our roomette, and sat across from Rachel, still asleep, but less still now. Her breath had quickened. Her body was curled tighter. Something in her subconscious had begun to register that the game was slipping. I let her sleep. I opened the laptop, plugged in the drive. The folder loaded slowly. I watched the bar fill without blinking. Inside were screenshots. Text threads between her and Ethan. Dates, locations. A photo of them at a small hotel lobby I didn't recognize. Another of Rachel on a balcony, clearly taken early morning, my sweatshirt draped over a chair behind her. It wasn't just the infidelity. It was the familiarity of it. She wasn't experimenting. She was rehearsing. Among the documents was a lease agreement. New place, Fremont, California. Signed. Dated. Set to begin next month. They were already building a life. Not dreaming about it. Not imagining it. Building. I closed the laptop and looked at her. She stirred, blinked, stretched slowly like she always did after a nap, and looked at me with a smile rehearsed enough to belong on a stage. I didn't return it. Just nodded and said I'd been out getting some air. Her eyes flicked toward the laptop. She didn't ask about it. Didn't ask what was on the flash drive resting by my hand. Smart enough not to. The rest of the morning was filled with her nervous energy, not overt, but in the little things. She asked if I wanted breakfast, then coffee, then if I felt okay. She adjusted her shirt 3 times in 5 minutes. Checked her reflection in the dark glass. Said things like, "We're almost there," as if we were headed somewhere together. She was talking to fill the space. But space can't be filled when one person isn't answering. I watched her spin. Then, slowly, I began to spin it back. I mentioned casually that I'd spoken to someone interesting in the lounge car, someone who knew her name, but she didn't know theirs. I let that sit. Her posture shifted. Not much, but I noticed. I asked her how long she'd been planning to move to Fremont. She didn't respond right away, just blinked, like she was trying to do the math on whether I was bluffing. Then said, "What are you talking about?" Too quickly. That was enough. I didn't need a confession. I had a folder. I had audio. I had signatures. Confessions are for people who still think the truth might save them. Later, I stepped out for a few minutes, walked the train's length to the last car, stood alone with the wind battering the small platform, and called my lawyer. Not for advice. For instruction. I told him to prepare a file, digital records, financial reviews, a preliminary filing for separation, and full account locks until further notice. I gave him a timeline. Names. Details. I heard his voice shift on the other end, professional, but with a new edge. He understood the tone. This wasn't a maybe. It was the first step. Back at the cabin, Rachel was sitting cross-legged, trying to act like nothing was shifting under her. But I saw the way her thumb tapped her knee. The way her eyes kept trying to catch mine. She was starting to feel it. Not guilt. Exposure. I said nothing. She tried to talk. Asked if we could maybe extend the trip, head north, find a rental, start fresh. As if the miles we'd covered could erase what she'd dragged behind her. I nodded once. Maybe. That maybe was the last thing I gave her freely. That evening, I sat across from her as the train curved along the final stretch of water before Emeryville. She was quiet now. Tired, maybe. Or bracing for something. I pulled out my phone. Opened the audio. I didn't have to play the whole thing. Just the first few lines. Her voice. His. A plan. A bank account. She didn't say a word. Didn't ask how I got it. Her eyes stayed on the screen, fixed, as if denial required stillness. And I didn't give her rage. I gave her stillness too. Because that's what kills people like her, not the storm, but the calm afterward. The silence that says, "I see everything, and you can't change any of it." When I stood up, she didn't follow. She didn't ask where I was going. She knew. This time, she wasn't leading anymore. She was waiting. And I let her. Emeryville Station wasn't built for beauty. Just function. Steel, concrete, wind. I stepped off the train with my bag over one shoulder. No one walked beside me. Rachel stayed behind. She didn't say goodbye. I didn't offer one. She knew. Outside the station, I didn't call anyone. Just walked. 2 blocks later, I found a bench and sat. No trains, no motion. Just still ground beneath me for the first time in days. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I'm nearby. Coffee. I typed back. Where? 10 minutes later, I was at a corner cafe. She was already there, the woman from the train. Leather jacket. No small talk. She handed me a cup and a folder. Inside, bank transfers, screenshots, a notarized statement. She said she needed him to think he was boring. It would make leaving easier. I didn't react. Just closed the folder. She does this. I asked. To people who won't fight back, she said. You didn't look like one of them. That was it. No lecture. No sympathy. She stood and left. I stayed long enough to finish the coffee. On the way back to my hotel, the text came. Rachel, can we talk before you disappear completely? I read it once. Replied. We already did. You just didn't hear it. Then I muted the thread. That night, I checked into a hotel. Dropped my bag. Sat on the bed. Didn't think. Didn't pace. Just breathed. Tomorrow would move. Tonight was enough. The message came the next morning. Please, just meet me. I need to explain. I agreed. Not for her. For myself. We met at a park near the water. One of those open spaces with worn benches and too much wind. She picked a table under a crooked eucalyptus tree. It creaked overhead. I didn't sit right away. She looked different. Not in some dramatic way. Just less put together. No makeup. Hair tied back fast. The kind of look someone has when they've stopped performing and don't know what to do with the silence that follows. I sat down across from her. She started talking before I even said a word. At first, she hesitated. Then it all spilled out. A long stream of explanations, half apologies, scrambled thoughts. Words like, I didn't mean to, and it just happened, and I never stopped caring. She went on for maybe 15 minutes. Maybe more. I stopped tracking after the first 5. She told me she felt lost. Said things had been broken for a while. Talked about fear and emptiness, and how Ethan made her feel seen again. She said she hated herself for how it happened. That she wanted to tell me sooner. That she never meant to hurt me. I didn't interrupt. Didn't argue. Didn't ask a single question. I just let her talk. Because sometimes, people don't need a conversation. They need to hear their own voice out loud and realize it doesn't fix anything. She finally stopped. Her hands were shaking a little. She looked up at me, like she was waiting for something, a reply, a fight, maybe even forgiveness. I looked her straight in the eye. You're free, Rachel, I said. Calm. Flat. No sarcasm. No anger. Just fact. She blinked. Sat back like someone had just shut off the lights. Then she tried again. Talked about our history. Our road trips. The way I used to make her laugh when we were younger. All the little memories she thought might still matter. But memories don't fix betrayal. They just make it sadder. She said my silence was worse than yelling. I said nothing. Eventually, I stood up. We're not having a conversation, I told her. You said your piece. I heard it. The rest goes through lawyers. She didn't argue. She just nodded, slow and tired. I walked away. No dramatic last words. No looking over my shoulder. Just the sound of the wind and her not following. 3 weeks later, I got the final paperwork in the mail. I signed it without ceremony. No whiskey, no music, no long stare out the window. Just a pen, a firm signature, and the sound of an envelope sealing shut. It felt less like the end of something and more like walking out of a room where the air had gone stale. After everything, Rachel didn't fight. She signed what my lawyer sent. No drama. No last pleas. Maybe she knew she'd lost the power to shape the story. I didn't post about it. Didn't tell friends the full version. When people asked, I just said we split. Left it there. Some things don't need an audience. What mattered was this. I had space again. Quiet mornings. My own schedule. Real sleep. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I was living next to someone. I felt like I was living with myself. I went back to work. Took on a couple residential projects that needed structure. The kind where the framing is crooked and no one knows why the floors are uneven. It suited me. I liked the idea of rebuilding something with my hands. One afternoon, I got a message. Short. Coffee if you're still in town? It was her. The woman from the train. She had a name now, Natalie. I met her at the same cafe in Emeryville. Same corner table. She wore that same jacket. No makeup. Didn't need it. We didn't talk about Rachel. Not much, anyway. I just thanked her. For the folder. For the silence. For not trying to make it easier than it was. She shrugged and said, You looked like someone who'd rather know than wonder. She was right. Over the next few weeks, we saw each other a few more times. Walks. Conversations. Coffee that turned into dinner. But never rushed. There was no angle. No performance. We talked like people who didn't need fixing. She told me more about her brother. How Rachel had wrapped him up, twisted him around, then vanished when things got hard. How she'd watched him fall apart quietly and promised herself she'd step in if she ever saw it happen again. I asked why she trusted me with the evidence. She looked at me for a moment and said, Because you looked like the kind of man who, once he knew the truth, would carry it with calm hands. I never forgot that. We didn't fall into anything dramatic. No grand romance. No declarations. But something built, slow, honest, steady. And that felt better than anything else could have. Rachel moved to Fremont. Or maybe somewhere else. I didn't follow. Didn't ask mutual friends. Didn't check social media. That chapter didn't need rereading. A few days ago, I walked past a window and caught my reflection. Didn't flinch. Didn't second-guess who I saw. Just nodded, like two old friends passing on the street. I had a life again. A clean one. Not perfect. But mine.